Hey everybody, welcome to the latest episode of the Rock Expanse with Mike Brunn. On this episode, I'm really excited to have back on the show with me, Andrew Sgambati, and we're going to talk all about his newest Kiss film, The Greatest Show on Earth 2. It's always a lot of fun talking with Andrew. I know you guys are going to really enjoy this episode, so let's jump in and let's get started. Hey everybody, welcome to the latest episode of the Rock Experience with Mike Brunn. I'm excited to have back with me, not for the first time, not the second time, not the third time, the fourth time's the charm. Andrew Sgambati, how you doing, Andrew?
I like that. I come back every time because you pronounce my name correctly on the first try. So,
well, the first time you were on, it was a challenge. I kept practicing it before you were on, but now I think I got. Although beforehand I was nervous. I'm like, don't ruin it, don't butcher it, don't butcher it. But how's everything been for you? And I've had you on 4 times because you've had some amazing films before this.
Oh, thank you so much, and thank you so much for bringing me on the show. I remember when you started this. And now, you've taken it to heights that I don't think anyone could have imagined. It was slam dunk that you got Paul Stanley on the show. But you've had a lot of cool things. The coolest thing, and anybody listening who doesn't follow your page, please do so, because it's not only the podcast. There's tons of cool concert photos and all kinds of cool stuff. So, I'm a fan. Only because you're a Jersey boy just like me, so we have that camaraderie, and it's funny when you're posting about events that you went to. I'm like, oh, I was there too.
You were there, right?
We didn't even know each other for
we
years,
didn't know each other, right?
But now
going
we
back
do.
to what, New Year's Eve 96, 97 was probably the first time we were in a building together.
I don't think if you remember this, but I know I do. I didn't purchase a T-shirt at the New Year's Eve 96, 97 show, but I bought it from you years later off the Kiss FAQ.
Which I didn't know for a few years, until about maybe 2-3 years ago. You mentioned, hey, do you know I bought the New Year's Eve shirt off you? I'm like, no shit, really? I had no idea. So
that was me.
That was kind of cool. That was cool.
I'm
glad it went to a good home.
Forever in my collection.
And that was a fun night. That was a cold night, but a very fun night.
People don't realize that it was so cold that night too.
Brutally cold.
But anyway, we digress.
Yes. But so like I said, 4th time on. Anybody who doesn't know, check out the films you put out before this, which wanted to just rattle them off. I know, because rattle off the names.
We're gonna rattle off all the films we got. The Greatest Show on Earth, Alive 96, Kiss at Midnight, One Last Time, and then a little fun one that I did, a rock and roll party in Tokyo with Kiss. But we're not here to talk about any of that.
We're not, right? Because now there's the new one that's set to come out in June, right? So talk about what the name of this one is.
June 10th, it's going to be called The Greatest Show on Earth 2. I've been talking about this project for a couple of years now, because there's been a lot of footage that has been circulating on the Hot in the Shade tour. So I knew I wanted to do something with the Hot in the Shade tour. There are really, really standout tours in history, Love Gun being one of them, and Hot in the Shade being kind of the next one in line with that. So I really wanted to be able to revisit this tour and revisit a time that gets virtually ignored by the band themselves.
Yeah, look, I agree. And, I grew up a Kiss fan all through the 80s. And and you just hit the nail on the head. And you didn't know what I was thinking, and I didn't know what you were going to say. But to me, it's the Love Gun tour in the 70s and that Hot in the Shade tour in the 90s. I went to that tour 3 times. And what a friggin' incredible show it was. They brought back a lot of the old songs, a great stage show. So I guess that's why, I know you said there's a lot of footage from this time, but is that why you said I really wanted to zero in on the hits tour?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm a little bit younger than you are, and probably younger than some of the people watching this. So I didn't get to experience this when it happened. I kind of was always looking back, and in a lot of books and a lot of interviews, Kiss always kind of talks about how the Hot in the Shade tour was a return to form. Yeah, the performing really short set in the Crazy Nights tour, and then now they were going back and really digging into some of those vintage tracks that hadn't been played in almost 10 years at that point. So I knew that I wanted to do something on this tour because this tour was so important to the band. My feeling is that this tour was kind of the first the first dip in the water of them being a nostalgia act and finally bringing back the makeup years later.
Yep.
Some people think of that as suicide. I don't. I love the reunion tour, one of my favorite tours. So to me, this was kind of them finally paying respect to the original lineup and those original songs.
Yeah, look, I'll say this, and I know a lot of Kiss fans will disagree. The set list to me they did on Hits was perfect, and I loved it even more than Revenge. I know Revenge is a great set list, but the Hits set list was really a perfect balance and a perfect mix of the old, the 70s coming back, and the new from the 80s, where they still had stuff like Fits Like a Glove, Crazy, Crazy Nights. It was really a perfect balance of those two eras coming together on the Hot in the Shade tour.
It was kind of like, if I can compare two tours, I compare the Dynasty tour and to the Creatures of the Night tour. Both of those were, I mean, we know that they toured out of the country for the Unmasked tour, but we're just talking about the USA audiences. So I feel like the Hot in the Shade tour was the Dynasty tour, and then the Revenge tour was the Creatures of the Night tour, because they were much more of a harder rock. They're going from just such a harder edge. On the Revenge tour, they dropped, a lot of shows. You didn't get Tears Are Falling. You certainly didn't get Crazy, Crazy Nights.
Right.
All the Hot in the Shade stuff was gone except for Forever.
Yep.
So I tend to agree with you, even though I absolutely love the Revenge tour.
Same.
We got to mention that we're recording this on the 30th anniversary of Revenge.
Great point. That's a great point, and a great album. I love it. And that's not to belittle the Revenge album and tour, but there's just something about the Hits tour that was always near and dear to my heart. And one of the things I love that you did with this film, at least for me, you filled a void that's been there for 30 some odd years, because as Kiss fans will remember, in the 80s, we had the Exposed video that came out, which I always thought was great in the 80s. And then there was this
perfect for the 80s.
It is. It's really, and it's, speaking of that came out today also in like 1987.
No, I think it was yesterday.
Oh, maybe it was yesterday. Yes, you're right.
Yesterday.
You're right. So, but there was talk at that time of them doing Exposed 2 from the Hot in the Shade tour, and it never happened. And now I feel like your film, finally, all of these years later, is going to fill that void that I've been waiting for 3 decades.
And that was always my goal. I wanted to fill in those gaps in history. They're the biggest visual band of all time, but for some reason their video releases are lacking. There's really huge holes in everything. So I knew this footage existed. It was shot by the great Jack Sawyers, who directed the God Gave Rock and Roll 2 video, but also did a lot of other stuff with him in the early 90s as well too. So this footage was shot, and it was supposed to be Exposed 2. Follow Exposed was kind of hokey and seeing Kiss in their home. This was supposed to be seeing Kiss on the road.
Right.
So what some fans may not know is there's about, I don't know, 6 or 8 hours of just backstage footage between the Reseda club show, Lubbock, the first night of rehearsal, and the first night of the tour, and then Dallas. But there's also great stuff of them rehearsing in New York City that was shot for a French TV show called M6. You got great footage there too. You have backstage footage and behind the scenes footage from the Rise to It video. You have behind the scenes footage of the Hide Your Heart the Hide Your Heart video. I'm sorry. Forgot what I was talking about for a quick second. The Hide Your Heart video. So you have all these cool things that when you watch them, they're basically like you save those for a rainy day. I don't know about you, but I don't need to watch 3 hours of them filming the Hide Your Heart video and then lip syncing that. You don't need to do that. Just like you don't need to watch 6 hours of backstage footage. You want to pick the coolest stuff and you want to tell a little bit of a story. So once I knew all this footage was out there, and once I knew that people liked it and wanted to see this, I was like, well, let me just take this footage. And when I looked at all my edits, I think I had around 24 hours of footage. So it was about taking that 24 hours of footage and putting it into something that the normal consumer could enjoy and watch and understand. Right. So your average Kiss fan, which are the people that are watching this, let's be real.
Sure, of course.
There are very few diehards like you and I.
That's
a small percentage of your audience and mine too. But for someone that wants to say, hey, I remember that tour, you want to be able to show them something that's cool. So the movie is 90 minutes long, and it covers all the Hot in the Shade tour. But since it's a sequel to The Greatest Show on Earth, I wanted to also tell the story between 1980 and 1988. So the movie starts out with kind of like a Kiss history lesson. The Greatest Show on Earth, the first part, it ended at 1980, 1979. So this one I wanted to pick up right at 1980 where Peter left. So the first 10 or 12 minutes of the movie is just, we're getting up to speed. Let's tell history and let's show the most important clips. Let's show Peter leaving the band. Let's show the makeup coming off. Let's show a little bit of the eye video. Let's talk about Lick It Up and Heaven's on Fire and Bruce joining the band. And let's bring you up to speed so that way when we join the band in June of 1989, where they're recording Hot in the Shade, you get a whole history. So you could essentially watch The Greatest Show on Earth 1 and The Greatest Show on Earth 2 and get the whole history of the band from 1973 all the way to 1990.
That's a great point. And that's one of the things I love about the show, the film to me is, look, I got tons and tons of bootlegs, probably 5,000 of them. I listen to and watch them, right? Same. But there's something about a documentary style film that always grabs my attention much more than just watching a bootleg. And that's what I love about this. You've got your live performances in there and you can see some of that, but it's telling the story, not just of the early 80s and Bruce joining the band and Eric joining the band, but really gives you that whole story. And it gives you a feel for what it was like on the road with them in 89.
And that's really what I wanted to do. I was heavily inspired late in this edit with the great Beatles movie Get Back, because that came out this past November. I've been working on this movie for about a year, and once I saw the Get Back movie, I was like, well, I could just let everything breathe. You know, you could watch a little bit of backstage footage. You could watch them, eating a meal and talking about the pyro cues and this and that. So to me, that's interesting. And there's funny stuff too. There's, Eric giving you a tour backstage. There's Eric and Gary Corbett. And let's just say right off the bat, the first you put in the movie and the first thing you see is I do dedicate this movie to Eric Carr and Gary Corbett, who have both passed. And I know, because I've talked to many people that have known and talked to both of them, I know that both of these guys would have loved this movie, because this shows how fun it was to be on the road with Kiss in 1990.
Right. And, for those who are watching, maybe don't know who Gary is. Gary was the touring keyboardist with Kiss, right? So, and one of my favorite moments in the film is that backstage, you see Gary and Bruce kind of jamming together. And I think Gary was playing a piano, I think it was, and Bruce is playing. And it's just like such a fun moment. And it's the little things like that. It's almost like a fly on the wall backstage with these guys.
Yep. That's really what I wanted to do. I wanted to show what it was like, to be in the road. And we're so fortunate that so much of this footage has been out there. Some of it's unseen, some of it's a little bit better than you've seen before. I did a lot of remastering of this footage. So a lot of people that have watched some of this Exposed 2 footage noticed that it was always very yellow. So I was able to take out all that ugly yellowness. I'm sure you've noticed it, because you probably sold me my copy back in 2001.
I never sold stuff. What are you talking about?
We traded, and
we traded,
and you gave it to me back in 2001.
That's right.
So, so I hope that people, they notice that I put in a lot of work to make this footage look as good as it possibly could. It's not in high definition. I was able to get a program that can convert stuff into high definition, but I got it really too late in the process.
Okay.
So it would have taken me so much longer to convert everything. I would have had to have almost started from scratch, converting everything to be able to, do it. So I decided that I wasn't going to put it in high definition. So it's still in standard definition, just like the original one is. Right. So, most of your TVs, you're not even going to know that it's not in high definition. So, but it would have taken me too long. And once I announced the release date, which for those of you that don't know, it is June 10th. That's the same day that Kiss Off the Soundboard comes out. So have yourself a great Kiss day.
Go be a Kiss day.
Go purchase Kiss Off the Soundboard live at Donington 96, and then go home and watch The Greatest Show on Earth too. But once I announced the release date, I really, really, really wanted to put this out. I have something here that I don't know how, maybe you could drop it in later on when someone wants to see it, but where is this? So once I released The Greatest Show on Earth, the first one, the very first time I released it back in 2018, the moment I was done with it, people were like, what's the next one?
Right. I think I did that to you.
Yeah. So I knew that this was going to be it. And originally I was calling it Exposed 2.
Yeah.
And I was saying it was coming in 2019. So that's how long this thing has kind of been in the works and kind of been on the back burner. I've had other ideas here and there, but I always knew I wanted to get back to this and I wanted to finish it, because it's something that I wanted to put out there. And I'll tell you, a lot of fans have told me that they can't wait to see it. So, you're at stop one on the promotional tour. So I'm talking about this now, and I'm probably not going to be done talking about it until, well into July, which is fine by me.
Which is great stuff. And I'll say this, I saw a draft version of it, and I know the fans are going to absolutely love it. Now, you said something as you were talking just there. So I'm wondering, as I watched it, I was like, I don't remember seeing some of these clips on those 6 hours of backstage footage. Now, in fairness, I haven't watched them in a few years. I don't have it all memorized, and it's 6 hours of footage. But is there some new things that the Kiss fans, the diehards like me, haven't seen that's in this film?
You know it. There is. There
Okay.
definitely is.
Mm-hmm.
So, and there's something cool, which is I'm gonna leave it as a surprise. Make sure you watch the movie. It's right in the introduction. It's something so cool that I know you've never seen, and it gives you a glimpse of something that you've always wanted to see.
Yep.
So, I mean, we're recording this on May 19th, right?
19th, yep. Mm-hmm. May 19th, yep. Mm-hmm.
So, but if you want to see your first glimpse of The Greatest Show on Earth 2, the first trailer is going to be released on May 30th. It's going to be everywhere. It's going to be on YouTube. It's going to be on Instagram. It's going to be on Twitter. It's going to be on Facebook. Any place that you want to get this trailer, you're going to be able to see it. And if the best thing that you can do for me as a struggling artist, I don't make any money off this, as everybody knows, just give it a like, give it a share. I know that if someone that you know is a Kiss fan, they're gonna love this. And I know, Mike's been lucky. He's seen an early cut of the movie, but he's also seen the trailer, so he kind of knows what to expect on it. And it's hopefully going to be something cool. I want people to remember what it was like in 1990 to see this band, our favorite band, right?
Oh, absolutely. And the praise to me, the highest praise you can get is on your previous film. I know Peter Criss has promoted. You've been on Eddie Trunk's show promoting it, right? So, I mean, you're talking about some of the highest praise that one could get. I mean, if Peter Criss is saying that's a good film, you've done something right, I think.
Yeah. I gave that film to Peter, and I wasn't even expecting him to comment on it. Sure. And all of a sudden I got an email from him one day, and then he put it on his website.
Yep.
Funny enough, now almost 2 years later, I'm Peter's webmaster.
Right.
But at the time, I was not.
You were not. So you weren't the one putting your film on his page.
I wasn't. Right. I didn't do any of that. Right. But it was cool. But I guess we can kind of talk about this now. I mean, not a lot of people know about this because here's the thing: we like to save some stuff. We like to taunt you. We like to give you little. No one wants to know what they're getting on Christmas. On Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I agree.
You're talking about how you're getting the highest praises or working with this and that, the guy in the band. Like I mentioned before, had Gary and Eric been alive today, I would have hoped to have been able to give them this and have them check it out and watch it. So I was able to speak with Bruce Kulick on this, and Bruce has seen the film and he absolutely loves it. But
that's awesome.
Even better than that, Bruce and I, we have partnered together to sell some Greatest Show on Earth 2 posters that are signed by Bruce Kulick. So they're not on sale yet, but the moment that the trailer drops,
when did they go on sale? May 30th? Okay.
Yeah, May 30th. Yep. So basically, when you watch the trailer, after you watch the trailer, you can head on over to KissArmyWarehouse.com and you can buy your very own copy of the Greatest Show on Earth 2 poster signed by Bruce Kulick. No, they're not signed by me. I feel like I'd be defacing them if I signed them. But if you want me to sign them, I will. But these are signed by Bruce Kulick. And, Bruce absolutely loves this film. He says it's one of the best representations of the Hot in the Shade tour. And it was just kind of cool to get that connection and go from watching this guy on stage to, talking to him on the phone. And, we're talking about my movie. It completely blew my mind. Blew my mind. But anyway, just to reiterate, head on over to KissArmyWarehouse.com. And if you want, purchase your own copy of the Greatest Show on Earth 2 poster. Original artwork done by one of my friends. His name is Nils. He did artwork for some of Julian Gill's books. So this guy is out of this world as far as an illustrator goes. So check that out. And again, hopefully you like it, and hopefully you want to get yourself one.
Well, that's great to hear. Bruce is supporting it behind it. We'll have those signed posters. To me, the Bruce and Eric Carr era is the era I grew up with as a teenager. And that's one of the things, again, watching this that I love is you see a lot of Eric Carr, you see a lot of his personality, some of the goofy things he do backstage. Yeah. And it's just like, it brings you back to me to a fun time to be a Kiss fan.
Mm-hmm. So. Not to say that now is not a fun time to be a Kiss fan, but there was like an innocence back then that hasn't been there for years. And it isn't just with Kiss, that's with a lot of things. So, one of my favorite scenes in the movie, and there were little clips of it on one of the Eric Carr documentaries that came out years ago. where Eric is backstage and he's showing you his fingers and goes like, this thumb is bigger than this thumb. And he's like, I'm beating the crap out of my drums for all you little kids out there. And it was just, it was cool. Yeah, Eric was always my favorite member of the band. And he's why I wanted to play drums. When I first picked up a pair of drumsticks, it was because I saw, an Eric Carr drum solo. Years later, I became obsessed with Peter Criss and Peter's style. But, as a young kid, that's what was there at the time.
Sure.
I became a fan in 88, and he was the drummer in 1988. I remember when he passed, I still had the little newspaper cutout when he passed.
Same.
And he was why I wanted to play drums, and the hair and everything. And it was just, I was obsessed, and I was a huge fan of the 80s Kiss at first. And, then the reunion came and that all changed. But, to make this was, I wanted to make a tribute, to Eric. And again, I wanted to make a tribute to Gary as well, too, because if Gary was still with us, I know for sure I would have gotten, Gary's seal of approval as well, too. But I mean, these are innocent, fun times to go back and, remember a cool time. I mean, how excited were you when you first saw Gene and Paul put the makeup back on for Rise to It?
Oh, it was extremely exciting to me. I remember that as clear as anything, hearing about that and waiting for that video to come out. And, I'll be honest, I wasn't too happy that Eric Carr wasn't in makeup at the time, because again, Eric was my guy. And I'm like, he should be in makeup. He should be in makeup. But still, it was all around just an exciting time to me to be a Kiss fan.
It's funny to me because you have all of this hype going on. You have a great single, Hide Your Heart. I thought it's probably, you could put it up against almost anything that came out that time, which is great. And then you had the great Rise to It video with them in the makeup, and then you had Forever. Right. And, I know the tour did very well, but I'm like, man, why didn't the album do double platinum?
I agree. I never understood that.
It was odd for me. And then, they kind of, Revenge didn't sell as well as they thought that it would either. So, but you have this time where we kind of felt like the underdogs as Kiss fans. So we kind of knew something before other people did. and that's how I view this era of the band. It's kind of like, well, we knew that this was good before everybody else did. You have people looking back now that are like, oh my God, it was great. But I'm like, guys, where were you when we needed you to buy records, or where were you on the Revenge tour? Because the Revenge tour tanked.
There's almost nobody there but you and I.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was too young, so I wasn't.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You weren't there. You weren't there.
If I was old enough, I would have been there.
You would have been there. Absolutely.
But absolutely. It's funny how we look back on it and how much we like it now. When it was happening, where was everybody?
Yeah, well, you know what? I never checked out. I was there for every single tour throughout the 80s. The only tour I didn't see was Creatures at Night, because it didn't come to the New York City area. So there's nothing I could do about that. I was too young.
Yeah, that's weird. I mean, they did a bunch of shows in upstate New York,
but nothing in the city.
Well, because they canceled, because again, that tour tanked.
Yep.
It really did.
No pun intended there. Huh?
No pun intended. But you have fans looking back on saying like, oh, it's the best they ever sounded in the 80s and blah, blah, blah. And that was the best stage show and this and that. And I'm like, listen, man, I agree with you. Gene Simmons has gone on a record now saying the next box set is Creatures of the Night. And people are freaking out because they want to hear stuff and see stuff they've never seen before.
Yep.
So, but guys, where were you?
Yeah. Well, I will say this, though, watching the film, one thing I got to chuckle at.
Oh yeah, we got to get back to the movie because
we're
just talking about Kiss.
We could go anywhere. That's okay.
Yeah. Let's talk about the great Sherman that comes out June 10th.
That's right. The good Gene Simmons pivot over there.
He taught me well.
Yes, he has. No, but one of the things I loved with because I remembered seeing this clip years ago, but I hadn't seen it in a long time. Seeing Gene Simmons wearing what I call the Richie Sambora cowboy hat during one of his interview clips. And I'm just like, oh man, Gene Simmons in a cowboy hat, just don't go to me. But I got such a kick because again, it was like such a time capsule of what that period was like.
It's so funny because you had all these bands, everybody wanted to dress like, they wanted to dress like, I don't know, for lack of a better term, they wanted to dress like women. They had, they were, yeah, I look good, and then you kind of got to like 89 and 1990. And then you had this turn where they didn't want to be women anymore. They wanted to dress in, leather and be cowboys and be outlaws. And it's so funny that there was such a flip like that because bands like Poison did it. Bon Jovi did it. Cinderella did it. I mean,
Motley Crue did it, right?
Motley Crue did it. Cinderella gets labeled as a hair band, but they were really much more of a blues band than people realize.
100%.
But all these bands did it. Everybody was wearing a cowboy hat, and they all had this, they had this acoustic guitar. And then, of course, Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora, they started MTV Unplugged.
Exactly.
So you got to thank those guys for getting Kiss back together, because without them, there'd be no MTV Unplugged.
No, great point. I never thought about that connection like that. Interesting.
But it was important to see that, because that was a part of the Hot in the Shade tour. They were no longer wearing, fingerless gloves and fringe and, neon colors and, all that. They were kind of going back to basics, where they were wearing it was darker colors, and they were wearing leather, and, it became cooler. One of the clips that ended up on the cutting room floor, thankfully, there was this long 20-minute little piece of footage of Paul Stanley trying on cowboy boots. Man, I think that was the first clip that I had seen when I finally got a hold of this footage years ago. And I was watching this, and I was like, man, this sucks. This is what I've heard about for so long. And Paul Stanley's trying on boots and going, I like the snake skin more than the crocodile skin. So when I first brought all the footage into my project, I was like, where is that piece? Delete. That's out of here. No way I'm putting that in there. No way.
No, I definitely don't think we need that. But to me, you were talking about how everybody with the cowboy hats and all of that, even just the whole Hot in the Shade album. And you brought up Cinderella before. I remember when I first put the needle on the album and hearing that slide guitar at the beginning of Rise.
You thought it was Backstage Blues.
Yeah, exactly. I thought, hey, this is a new Cinderella album. Somebody put the wrong thing in here, and then all of a sudden Rise to it kicks in. I'm like, there's the Kiss sound I know. But it's that's why I love that clip in there with Gene with what I call the Richie Sambora hat, because it totally fits that time so well.
Yeah. They all kind of looked like that a little bit. They were kind of like, they wanted to be outlaws. They didn't want to be a drag show anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Gene stopped looking like B. Arthur, and
which is a good thing.
Now he was looking like Richie Sambora. You tell me which one was better.
Maybe one small step up. I don't know. I'll let others decide that. But
but you had them looking like a cool rock band. My opinion.
Agreed. 100% agreed.
The unfortunate part is that they kind of got decimated by the Nirvana movement and the grunge movement and the 90s rock, which I love too. Some of my favorite bands are Bush, the Foo Fighters, and Soundgarden. It's just unfortunate that music became so popular that it kind of got rid of all the heritage rock bands. We just got tired of listening to Shitney Fox. That's the problem.
That is the problem. Fox, I like that. I did have that album, but I don't think I ever played it through and through all the way.
Oh man, it's one of the worst ones. But you had all those bands that sounded the same towards the late 80s, and people just got sick and tired of what band is playing Gazzari's this weekend. They got sick and tired of every band sounded like Rat and Poison, and they were like, enough. So when Nirvana came out, it killed everything. Can you imagine if Revenge came out in 1991 before grunge took over? What would have happened?
You would think the album would have sold better, but you
mentioned before. Is what would have happened.
Yeah, that's a great point. I wonder if well, I guess we'll never know, right? But that could be. Now, let me ask you though, somebody putting together these films, like the previous ones, like we mentioned at the top, were all makeup films. This one is the non-makeup era. For you, putting it together, is there any difference for you? Because the band is not as visual without the makeup, right? Let's call it, as much as I love it. But is it different for you? Is somebody putting together a film and saying, hey, this is a band not wearing makeup? Is it harder, easier? Does it not make a difference?
It was a lot harder, because going back to The Greatest Show on Earth, that movie was based around a concert, and there were complete songs. In this movie, there are no complete songs, because we've seen the live footage here and there. This was more about the backstage footage and the hijinks and the making of the tour. So this was harder because it wasn't driven on a concert. So even though there certainly is concert footage in here, this isn't concert driven like the original Greatest Show on Earth. So it was harder because there was so much. This was so much more than the original. The original kind of took it to a solid 5, and then this one takes it, from 5 all the way up to 10. It's it was a different animal, and that's why it took me so long, because every time I put it together, I was like, that ain't very good. I was watching some of my early edits, a week or so ago, and I was like, man, this sucks. Sucks really bad. And I was so glad that I decided to tell the history up front and then go into 1990 later on. That's the way to go.
Right.
Because initially what I was doing is it was like, oh, here's a little bit of 1990. Then, we're going to go back to 83. Then we're going to do 1990. Then go back to 84. It just didn't work.
It didn't flow, right?
You know, it worked so well in The Greatest Show on Earth because it was one concert.
Right. Okay.
And people had never seen that live footage synced to Kiss Alive 2. So it was a totally different monster. And not only did I want to make sure that a story was being told, but I wanted to make sure that I didn't lose anybody. I wanted to make sure that, you know, no one was falling asleep going, man, this is boring. You just put together a movie of B-roll footage.
Right.
I wanted to keep it exciting. I wanted people to see and hear things that they were curious about. You know, a lot of people don't know that Kiss is instrumental in, you know, planning their show. And there's a really great clip of Gene talking about, you know, pyro cues during Heaven's on Fire.
I loved it. Yep.
So sometimes people don't know that. So I wanted to show those things to basically give people all access on the Kiss tour.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I picked up watching it. They talk about the pyro cues or whatever. Then you drop in the live footage that kind of shows the end results. Yeah. And as I'm watching, I'm thinking, how many hours, years, months, whatever it was, do you take watching all of this footage? Because it tells a very fluid story straight through. If you're talking about something, then all of a sudden you got a clip of Paul Stanley in an interview talking about it. Then you go to a live clip, then it goes to Gene talking about it, and it just flows. I'm like, you know, I've watched this footage, but there's no way I would know, hey, at this 4-hour mark on this film over here, I could drop in 2 minutes of how long does it take you watching all this stuff to be able to piece it all together?
Well, what took me the absolute longest, because yes, I did watch everything from beginning to end multiple times.
Yep.
What took me the longest to do is, not a lot of people probably know this, but if you watch, or if you had, you know, this Exposed 2 footage for years, it's out of order.
You know, I never noticed that.
It's out of order. So the hardest thing was I had to put it back in order. Obviously, there's stuff in Rosita, so that came first. That was April of 1990. But then all of the rehearsal footage, the live footage, and then the stuff in Dallas, it's all out of order. So what I had to do is I had to determine, based on what those guys were wearing, I determined, all right, what day is this? And even though they rehearsed for 4 days in Lubbock, the camera crew was only there for 1 day of rehearsal and then the actual show day.
Right.
And it was about putting all that stuff in order and thinking to myself, like, man, okay, well, I guess they must have, you know, played through the set twice. That's why we have 2 sets, not 2 separate days,
right?
Because they're wearing the same thing. And then when they come back, they're wearing different. So it was, the hardest thing was putting it in order. Because again, to tell the best story, that stuff needed to be in chronological order. If you're skipping around talking about stuff, you would have lost the audience. But it's important that, you know, they get to the venue, then they're taking promotional shots, then they do a little clip of, you know, Rise to It for Japanese television crew, which I don't know about you, but I've never seen the actual, you know, TV footage of this. We've only seen what they shot. I don't recall
ever seen it. Yep.
Never seen it, but a Japanese TV crew was there filming Rise to It. But it was important to go through that journey with them. And if you turned it on and you're skipping back and forth between Dallas and Lubbock and Rosita and all the people like this, what am I watching? But that's the first thing that I did when I sat down. I had to put it all in order.
And then how did you find it? Because the Rosita stuff I've been familiar with, I know what it looked like. And it's easy to tell the difference between the Rosita footage and anything else, at least for me. But then there was, like you said, like the day before the tour began. And I saw on the screen you put, I think it was May 3rd, 1990, if I remember right. Yep. So how did you find out which day that is? Is that just a lot of research on you? How did you find that out?
Yeah, it was a lot of research on my part. Like I say, I knew they were there for a week. But when I was looking at it, and there's actually an interview where they were like, oh, the tour is starting tomorrow night. So I was like, okay, cool. So the tour starts May 4th. So this must be May 3rd.
Gotcha,
and then I go, okay, if this is May 3rd, they're wearing the same thing in all of this footage. So that must mean this comes from May 3rd. Oh, they changed clothes. This must be May 4th. Oh, they're outside. This must be Dallas.
Right.
So just watching the footage over and over and over again, that's how I found out where it came from and how to put it in order. That was the worst part. That was the part where I was like cursing myself, going, "What did I get myself into?" This, you know, when I did the original Greatest Show on Earth, it was easy to tell what came from 73 and what came from 76. This, I never thought that I'd be watching what 4 grown men were wearing more than I did now.
Well, I can tell you, as a longtime fan and collector of this stuff, I appreciate it because I was never able to pinpoint when that footage was from. And as soon as I saw it pop up on the screen, May 3rd, I'm like, "Ooh, how the hell did you know that?" I got to ask him about that. So even just for the longtime collectors like myself, not only does it tell a good story, not only was there some new footage in there, but even just giving clarity around the stuff that I've had for years, in some cases decades, it was nice to see as well.
Yeah, it was important to do that. And I took inspiration of putting those dates on the screen from Peter Jackson's Get Back, the Beatles movie, because they basically, the movie is told through that calendar.
Right.
So I knew I wanted to do something like that. I wasn't going to do a calendar like he did because I wasn't going to rip him off, but I knew I wanted to tell, once we got into the meat and potatoes of the Hot in the Shade tour and the Hot in the Shade era, it was important to tell the story from beginning to end. You know, they shot I'm sorry that I'm burping so much. I don't know what it is. Hopefully they can't hear it.
No, I didn't hear it. So
yeah, I'm just like, man, I hear it. Sorry, edit that out. It was important to know that the first thing that was done for the album was in September of '89. That's when they filmed the Hide Your Heart video.
Right.
And one of the coolest parts about that is I did find an interview from the great Marty Callner, who was the director of that video. Now, this is where some movie magic comes in. I never found an interview of Marty Callner talking about Kiss, but I did find parts of things that applied to the Kiss video, like him talking about 35 millimeter footage, him talking about the censors. I don't know if people there know, but there are two versions of the Hide Your Heart video. There's one that's uncensored and one that's censored.
I don't remember that. Wow.
You can actually see censored footage that was taken out of the MTV airing.
I don't remember that one. That's interesting.
Yeah. So if you watch them, you got to watch them side by side because they took out all shots of like violence and guns. That's what they took out.
Right. Okay. Yes, I remember that. Yes.
Most of the video, the performance stuff is the same, but they took out anything that had to do with violence and guns. So I found a little clip of Marty talking about. He's like, "Oh, I fought with the censors," and I think it really well rounds the film because not only you're hearing Gene and Paul talk about it, but now you're hearing Marty Callner talk about it too. And people might not know that this guy was like one of the biggest MTV era directors of all time. Did a lot of Aerosmith videos, did a lot of stuff with a lot of bands, and he was one of the greats. He really was.
Yep. So what's your favorite part of the whole film then? Besides it being done?
Oh yeah, being done is my favorite part. for sure. My favorite part, it's funny because even though this movie is on the Hot in the Shade tour, you're telling little bits of Kiss's story throughout the whole thing. My favorite part is Paul Stanley talks about Destroyer. And while Kiss is performing Shout It Out Loud in 1990, he talks about Destroyer. And there's all these great photos that a lot of people have never seen from the A&R studios, January 13th, 1976, when they did the Great Expectation overdubs. So it's cool that Paul in 1990 is talking about Destroyer, and you kind of see a little bit of that. So I thought it's important because, again, they were finally paying respect to the past. So what better way to do that is for them talking about Destroyer. You know, every time Kiss puts out an album, they always compare it to Destroyer. I mean, you know that.
It's the best album since Destroyer. Always.
Best album since Destroyer. Yeah. Best album since Destroyer. Well, wasn't the last album the best?
Of course.
Okay. All right. Well, so Psycho Circus is Destroyer now.
Yeah, I think so.
Sonic Boom. Finally, Sonic Boom is Rock and Roll Over. Okay, great. Finally. Enough of that bullshit.
We moved off of Destroyer. No, but that was the running joke in the 80s all the time. As whenever you started pressing, you knew it was going to say our best album since Destroyer. So I love that you have that in there.
Yeah, that was a little, Kiss fan inside joke. But in doing that, I wanted to show you guys something cool and show you some of these photos that maybe no one had ever seen before.
Yeah. And that's what I love. I mean, the attention to detail with all of this. And, you mentioned my page before, and every day I'll put, anniversary dates up there. People don't know this about me, but even in my personal life, I keep a spreadsheet. This is crazy. I know it is what I'm about to say, and I shouldn't say it publicly. I keep a spreadsheet of every day in my life and what I've done on that particular day, because I'm very fanatical about dates and all that stuff. So when you start dropping in that kind of detail and when these pictures were taken, when this film was, you instantly suck me in with that type of stuff.
I keep dates of all my Kiss concerts that I attended.
Very nice.
They're all there. All of them are there.
Very nice. Well,
I've been to quite a few.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, what are you up to? You got to be 60, 70, 80. How many?
45.
Oh, really? I thought it was more than that.
Listen, that's still for, listen.
But you started in 96, 7.
I started in 97.
Yeah.
I didn't start seeing multiple shows on a tour until 2003. So,
wow.
So not bad.
Look, I always say it's not a contest. Doesn't matter how many times you've seen the bands, but you should see the band. That's it. Plain and simple. You should see the band. And if you're not going to see the band, you should watch the film.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, Gene Simmons did you well too. He taught you how to do it. So again, and if you want to see the film, you can see it. It will be streaming on YouTube on June the 10th. And I probably, just like what I've done with all the rest of them, is I put it out 8 p.m. the night before. Because, when you go see one of these new Hollywood movies, you can go to like a midnight showing or like the night before.
Yes.
So
anytime I see Star Wars, that's the way I do it.
Yeah. So it's about creating excitement and creating excitement for people that, can sit down and watch this and make it like a family event. I will say this, even though we're talking about the movie release, which is June 10th, we're talking about the trailer release. So you can see clips from for the first time. That's on May 30th. You can buy the poster on May 30th too. But I tell you, there is still something cool regarding the movie that is still coming. So, keep an eye on Mike's page, keep an eye on all the pages here, because something cool is still coming. And I promise, as a Kiss fan, you guys will like it, because it's something I'm so excited about. I don't want to spoil the surprise, because again, no one wants to know what they get on Christmas.
Exactly. And I can say you're not doing the Gene Simmons hype yet. The fans will love this.
Not doing any hype. Cool. This is something I've never done before. And this is something that's going to be so cool. It's free. And you'll be able to do it for absolutely free. And it's going to be something so cool. So I can't wait to do it. I can't wait to talk about it. It's almost, I don't know, it's almost a month out, and I'm excited. I'm jazzed. So, but this is cool. This is something that I hope that I would have been able to have seen. I remember in the 90s, I went and bought Kiss: The Visual Evolution from one of the Kiss conventions. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever.
Yep.
So this is guys like Dave Stryker, guys like Nick Vivid and guys like that. I mean, these guys, they were my inspiration to do stuff like this. So it was cool. And it's funny, because I know when I was like putting out all the messaging people to do interviews and all this stuff, and I was saying, it's gonna be my last Kiss film, because there is no things that I can do. And of course, 2 nights ago, I got a really awesome idea, and so there will be another one.
All right, there you go. Good. That's great.
There will be another one.
That's great. And you were saying before, the first date for fans to look out for is May 30th. That's where the trailer's going to drop. The poster.
May 30th.
Tell them again where to get the poster.
All right. So again, May 30th, you'll be able to see the first trailer. While you're watching the trailer, you're going to see where you can get this cool poster. It's way over there. I would get one. Hold on. I'm going to go get one.
All right. This is cool. Of course,
but
yes.
here's one of the cool posters, and this one is signed by Bruce Kulick. So this is something so cool. I'm so excited that I was able to do something like this. So I hope you guys dig it. I mean, people have seen the poster before. I did release the poster back in April. But I haven't really told anybody that they were going to be signed by Bruce Kulick yet. So this is something so cool. I'm so excited to be able to share this, with you. Bruce will be sharing it as well too. Bruce is excited to be a part of this. He really thinks that this is the best representation of the Hot in the Shade tour, and it's cool.
I'm going to correct him. I think it's the best representation of Kiss in the '80s, not just the Hot in the Shade tour.
You said that.
I did, and I will, and I'll stand by it.
But this is something so cool, and like I mentioned, these are for sale, and I hope you guys dig it. And again, there's not a Kiss logo or a Kiss image on here, so this isn't me. These are for sale. I'm not quitting my job over these. I want to let everybody know.
Sure,
that.
You're not.
But this is just something cool something that I give to you guys. You'll also sooner rather than later, I think around May 30th, you'll also be able to go to clicktshop.com and you'll be able to purchase your own Greatest Show on Earth 2 t-shirt. They've carried every t-shirt for every one of my movies. Such a cool place. Yep, but again, head on over to kissarmywarehouse.com. Get yourself one of these signed posters by Bruce Kulick. Here's the thing. I will have them with me at Creatures Fest.
I was going to ask you about that, yes.
Weekend, but they're not, I'll have them there, and they'll certainly be for sale there, but the proper launch for these is going to be May 30th. So check them out, and I'm so excited that I was able to do something like this.
I love it. I love the film. I love the poster. I'm glad Bruce is supporting it. You deserve all of the praise, and I know the Kiss fans are going to absolutely love it when they get to see it in a few weeks.
I really, really hope they do. You know, every time it's funny. Every time I do something, I'm always like, I always have the same two thoughts. The same two thoughts are, am I going to be able to finish this? And then once I do finally finish it, I'm like, is this any good? Because you never know
Right, of
when you're
course.
watching it so long. So that's why it's so important for guys like you and guys like Julian and guys like
Hmm.
Matt Porter. It's
Yep.
so important for you guys to see it because you guys are my sounding board. If you guys are like, hey, this sucks, then I'll be like, oh my god, it
Oh
really
no,
does
no,
suck.
what?
If they think it
Right.
sucks.
Uh,
So you guys are in a position where you're able to see it, and even though you saw an early cut, it was, it's as close as you can to the, you're not going to be able to tell that cut from the
right.
actual cut. There'll be some color correction, and Andy Samford does all my audio mastering. So I just got back the audio mastering today. Actually,
Nice.
as soon as we're done here tonight, I'm going to finish putting that together and get the final edited, if you
Until
know what I
tomorrow when
mean.
you decide that you're going to do another small edit or something like that.
No, I actually haven't edited in 2 whole days because I'm like, no
Ooh,
more, no
okay.
more little edits, no more doing that. And I had to kind of let it percolate a little bit and let
Hmm.
it kind of marinate and get all the juices really good because,
Hmm.
you don't want to cut into it too soon. So, and this was important because this is a long labor. This wasn't an idea I had last week, last
Right.
month. This idea has been there since 2019. And,
It shows to me.
it's,
It shows. It's a labor of love. It really shows to me.
there are certain parts that have been originally since the 2019 cut.
Hmm.
One of the things that I totally forgot that I even cut out is there's footage of them at the rehearsal studio for that French TV show
Hmm.
M6, where Gene and Paul are just playing acoustic guitar and they play the intro to Black Diamond. And
Right.
initially I had them go into Black Diamond,
Hmm.
but I was like, I have the same thing with Forever. So I didn't
Right.
want to have it like 2 times. So I took it out and
And
thinking I might
you
put it.
didn't leave in there the part of Gene Simmons doing Judas Priest songs either. I noticed.
Yeah, I thought it was
With the
important to take
chicken,
that.
right? He has the
Yeah.
chicken.
Well, the chicken is on the Kiss My Ass video. So if
That's
I
true.
put that in here, they'll take me right off YouTube immediately.
Great
So
point. Great point. Well, that's
so I
interesting. So all the clips that you put in, you have to make sure from a video point of view, they weren't previously released and
you
exposed.
got it.
Or
You got
wow,
it.
I never even made that connection.
You got it. You
Obviously,
got it.
music, I know there's always the concern, but even the small little video clips,
The
interesting.
smaller video clips are concerned too. So there are little things that I took out just because I didn't want it to be redundant.
Mhm.
It's cool to hear them play Black Diamond together, but I thought it was cooler for them to do Forever because that was the song. That song is why we had the Hot in the Shade
Of
tour.
course. Yeah.
That's why I had the Hot in the Shade tour anyway. So and here's the thing, I would never take anything away from Eric Carr. I know that was Eric's only lead vocal on the tour, but Eric gets a lot of airtime in this
Agreed.
movie.
Agreed.
So just losing Black Diamond wasn't a huge deal, in my
I
opinion.
never even gave it a second thought, to be honest with you,
There you go.
because
I
he's in
thought
the
it was
film a
in there
lot.
until yesterday.
Okay.
I watched it again and I was like, didn't I? Man, I did take that out.
Yeah.
Just because it's been so long.
I never gave it a second thought because he's well represented throughout the movie. His personality, his jokeness, his pranksterness backstage. He's
Mm-hmm.
got the sneakers and that whole thing,
Oh
and
yeah,
it's just
yeah.
his whole personality comes through, and it made me smile from ear to ear. Reminded me what I
Mm-hmm.
loved about him and the band at that time. So
Yeah.
you represented him very well. I'm sure the family will love it. The fans will love
Mm-hmm.
it. There's no doubt about that in my mind.
I
Not at
hope
all.
so. I hope so too. I did send an email to Carrie Stevens a couple days ago
Okay.
because she has a little part in it too, and
Yep.
just because she loved Eric, just like we all did.
Yep.
So I'll see her at Creatures Fest too. So we'll see. Like I mentioned, these might be on sale at Creatures Fest. But what I will have at Creatures Fest is I do have postcards for everyone that sees me, giving them a postcard, and on the back of the postcard is a QR code. And if you scan the QR code, it takes you right to the YouTube page. How cool is that?
What could be better than that?
How can you
and,
forget
and
that?
they better subscribe to that YouTube page
It
once they
says
do
it
that.
right there. So
Okay,
basically,
good.
it says, make sure you subscribe. It takes you right
And
to
put
the
on
page.
notifications. This way, the
And put
second
on
it drops,
notifications.
bang, you get notified.
Yeah, so you get notified. But you guys already know when it's going to be out. It's going to be out on June 10th. So you'll be able to wake up the morning of June 10th. And maybe if you stay up late on June 9th, you'll be able to see it then too. But you wake up early on June 10th, and then you'll be able to see The Greatest Show on Earth 2 on YouTube. And hopefully you crank it and, love it loud and all that good stuff. And,
Any other Kiss cliches that we can
any other Kiss cliches? It's everything's Kiss. Kiss, miss, kiss.
That's right. That's right.
This is an important story to tell because this time period is definitely glossed over in that the Great Kisstory documentary that came out last year.
Very true.
So, so hopefully the fans they enjoy watching it as much as I did putting it together. It's 90 minutes of nonstop Kiss.
Well said. Well said.
Or what does Paul say in the trailer? Expect Kiss, but expect Kiss in bigger doses. That's what he says in the trailer.
That's right. So there you go. Well, Andrew, I want to thank you for coming on my show first. I appreciate that.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I want to thank you for putting this and your other films together as well, because they've been a great service for the fans. We love it. Obviously, band members love it. Eddie Trunk loves it. It's really been a lot of tremendous success, and I'm excited to hear that this isn't the last one.
This isn't the last one.
So we'll have to have you
once
on
we
for
stop
a fifth
recording.
time.
I'll tell you the next one.
Okay, very good. Well, then on that note, we're going to stop recording right now. Thank you, Andrew. No, seriously, thank you for coming on. And
Thanks for having me.
Watching June 9th or 10th, depending on when you drop it. So.
Depending on, like I said, I probably do it a couple hours early on June 9th, just like I do with all the rest of them. But again, you'll be able to see it on June 10th. And to see your first taste of The Greatest Show on Earth 2, to kind of just get a little taste and figure out what's going to happen in this movie, you'll be able to see the trailer on May 30th. It'll be literally everywhere. And then on May 30th, you could also order your very own Greatest Show on Earth 2 poster signed by Bruce Kulick.
And don't sleep on them. And don't sleep on those, because they're not going to last.
This is cool. It's really nice and thick, glossy paper. And, it's something so cool. I didn't want to make it too big, because if it was up to me and I had to, a place for this or a place for my New York City 77 poster, I'm sorry, but that's going to win. So this at 11 by 17, you'll be able to put it up. If you're still in school, put it up in your locker. This is something really, really cool. So, and
I love the whole look of it with the glasses for Hot in the Shade. Right? You got the Sphinx
Hot in the Shade, and it says Kiss without saying it.
So, totally. If you look at that and you don't know it's Kiss on the Shade, then you're not a Kiss fan, is the way I say it.
You're not a Kiss fan. That is true.
And I hope I didn't insult somebody just now, but that's the way I feel.
And it's signed by the great Bruce Kulick. We love Bruce, and we love his contributions to the band, and what a cool guy. When him and I met up and got these signed back in April, it was cool. I mean, he signed the posters within, a couple minutes, and then we just sat around and hung out and talked about music and, talked about other people that we know, and we're like, oh, well, you did that, or I did this, or I didn't know that you did that, and you were here, and I know this guy. And it was really, really, really cool, because I had watched videos with that guy since, I could remember.
Agreed.
I'm putting in my Kiss Extreme close-up VHS, and there he is. And now,
there he is.
Now I'm texting this guy, like, what is my life? So it's something that's really, really cool, and not only a great musician, but just a great guy, a really cool guy, and get your own. So May 30th, you'll see the trailer for The Greatest Show on Earth 2. Head on over to KissArmyWarehouse.com to purchase your own signed poster, and then June 10th on YouTube. What more could you want?
Nothing.
There you go.
Andrew, thank you so much. This is a blast. I look forward to seeing the movie in a few weeks. And until then, that's it for this episode. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you guys soon. Maybe I'll see some of you guys over at Creatures Fest. Andrew, I'll definitely see you there as well.
See me there.
Awesome. Take it easy, everybody. Alrighty, there you have it. I'd like to thank Andrew for joining me for the 4th time on my show, talking all about his new upcoming film, The Greatest Show on Earth 2. I know you guys are going to really enjoy it and really love this film, so keep an eye on it, coming out June 10th. Thanks again, Andrew, for joining me. It's always a lot of fun. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below. If you're listening to one of my podcasts, subscribe over there as well. Also, head on over to Facebook and follow my page, The Rock Experience with Mike Brunn, where each and every day we talk about all the rock and roll music that you love. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter as well. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you all next time.